All right. My name is Michael Hoff, part of the Faceless Sports Network, and right now we're going to give you three tight ends to start and three to sit for Week 8 of the NFL season. Yes, believe it or not, here we are, Week 8. But let's jump right into it. We're going to go with Mr. Cade Otton of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers going up against the Atlanta Falcons. Here's the deal. This one has a lot to do. Listen, a lot of these matchups sometimes they have a lot to do. What you'll see as we go through this, it's the defense is allowing this or they're not allowing that. But the giant elephant in the room here is Mike Evans going down with that hamstring injury. It's going to sideline him for weeks. Then we have Chris Godwin, who is now unfortunately done for the year. So beyond that, though, through 7 games, Otten has a 6% higher target share than he did in 2023. Now, I bring that up because it's to me that tells me it has more to do with the offensive coordinator than anything else. We thought a lot about what would life be without Dave Canales. Well, life without Dave Canales, even before these injuries at the wide receiver position, they helped Cade Otton. So beyond that, now we see all of a sudden the injuries. I think this week in particular against the Atlanta Falcons, and the Falcons haven't been the best against the tight end position. He's going to get fed. Cade Otton is going to get fed early and often in this particular spot. So I like Cade Otton to produce. I like Cade Otton to ultimately be, because of these injuries, unfortunately, even though, yes, Evans is going to come back at some point. He's not done for the year. But Cade Otton, if you drafted him and if you had him this whole time, he's going to be the lottery ticket for you at the tight end position. So hang on to Cade Otton, start him with confidence going up against the Atlanta Falcons. The next name I'm going to mention is somebody who I almost never mention as a start. Matter of fact, I told you I couldn't stand him going into the season, and it had less to do about him. It had more to do with his quarterback, that being Deshaun Watson. Our tight end to start in week 8 is David Njoku going up against the Baltimore Ravens. Listen, David Njoku had 14 targets last week in that game against the Bengals. 9 of them came after Deshaun Watson went down. We're not going to get into the particulars of the Deshaun Watson injury, what you think about it. That's not for this particular show. But he got 9 of 14 targets after Watson went down. And this was always my thing. My whole bit was always that as long as Watson was the quarterback, Njoku would not get enough targets. You know, and by the way, just taking a look at this, I mean, I envision the same thing, whether it's Joe Flacco or whether it's Jameis Winston. When Watson went out last year, because we all remember Watson went out with the shoulder injury last year. David Njoku at that point, his target percentage between the time in which Watson played and when he was out jumped up by 5%. So the target share jumps up by 5%. And oh, by the way, beyond that, we also no longer have Amari Cooper in this offense. So to me, that bodes well very much for David Njoku moving forward in terms of his target share. Now, if we get into the week 8 bit of it, he's going up, and luckily enough, he's going up against the Baltimore Ravens. And you might say, Mike, Baltimore Ravens are one of the best teams in football. Well, not against tight ends, they ain't. The Baltimore Ravens right here, the Ravens are one of 2 teams to allow over 100 points at tight end position. Beyond that, it's been consistent that they have allowed, and I have it right here, they have allowed at least 10 points at tight ends in 6 of their 7 games this season. So you now have an offense that will utilize a tight end position going up against a defense that has allowed 10 or more points to tight ends in 6 of their 7 games played this season. Sign me up on Mr. David Njoku. I am back in the building. I am all in on David Njoku, and we will go from 185 to another. And yeah, this one might seem a little more obvious, but I gave it a Cade Otton. I gave it a David Njoku. I'm going to give you a little bit of George Kittle going up against the Dallas Cowboys. Listen, this is another thing. We talked about the elephant in the room with the injuries as far as David Njoku. What's going on over there? Well, same thing applies to George Kittle. There's a lot of injuries going on there. I mean, Debo Samuel was released from the hospital. We expect him to play, even if he doesn't practice. We'll see. But either way, Kittle is going to get fed, and Kittle already has a 20% target share. Kittle has been more consistent this year. If you take a look at the numbers, he's been more consistent this year than he was in pretty much any season prior, based on all the weapons out there in front of him. So I think this is a prime spot for Kittle to really grab the reins. I mean, last time he played the Cowboys, he had his best performance of the season. Granted, it was 3 touchdowns off of 3 catches for 27.7 points. So here's my whole bit. Is Kittle scoring 3 touchdowns against the Cowboys? No, he's not scoring 3 touchdowns against the Cowboys, but he's going to get a higher target share. He's going to get more catches. He will catch more than 3 passes this weekend. He will get in the end zone. He will put up the yards. So to me, Kittle is bona fide one of the guys that you should play unequivocally. And oh, by the way, he's also one of 2 tight ends that has scored 100 points in PPR format. So that just goes to show you how consistent he's already been, which we've already said is a rarity. So those are my 3 tight ends to start: Cade Otton, David Njoku, George Kittle. Let's get into the bad news of it. Let's get into the 3 guys that I'm going to sit. And one of them is going to be Mike Gesicki of the Cincinnati Bengals going up against Philadelphia Eagles. After being targeted 18 times in the first 3 weeks, Gesicki has been targeted 4 times in the last 4 weeks. 4 targets in the last 4 weeks. Not great, Bob. Going beyond that, Gesicki's now playing an Eagles team, allowing the fewest points to the position. Beyond that, they've only had one week in which the Eagles have allowed more than 10 points to an opposing tight end. So you take what Gesicki's been getting in targets, along with what the Eagles have done in allowing less than 10 points. I don't see how you truck Gesicki out there in any circumstance. And I get it. We don't have any teams on bye this week, so you might not be up against it. But maybe you're in a league with depth long enough where this is reaching you, where you might be at a point where you have to start Gesicki. He's not the play, man. He is not the guy to do it. So Mike Gesicki for me is an unequivocal sit. If I'm going to go to another sit, we'll keep it in the AFC North, because why not? Let's go to Pat Freiermuth going up against the New York Football Giants. Listen, say what you want about the Giants, but they have allowed less than 15 points at tight ends in each of the last 3 weeks combined. Take the last 3 weeks, combine them. It hasn't been 15 points. That's a tough matchup for Mike Gesicki. And by the way, Mike Gesicki has not been getting as many targets lately. So I don't like this matchup for him either. There will be better matchups ahead if you're streaming at the tight end position. But this week in particular is not it for Pat Freiermuth. We're going to see Arthur Smith be tricky in his own little ways. We saw last week he did not, he didn't predominantly take over the targets at tight end for the Steelers. And that is very, for those who had last year, Kyle Pitts and Jonnu Smith, this rings very true to you. So, and it seems like maybe Russell Wilson got this offense into the right Arthur Smith rhythm. Not the rhythm that you all want it to be, because you want Justin Fields to start, but the right Arthur Smith rhythm. So I don't like Pat Freiermuth at all this week. I think he underperforms from whatever you're expecting. He is one guy to sit. We'll go to one more. It's going to be Mr. Sam LaPorta. And that one might surprise you guys, because I'm going to have the balls to go out here and say this. But not only are the Titans allowing the fewest points at tight ends this year, they lead the league with 4 games of allowing less than 5 points to tight ends. So Sam LaPorta has already been underperforming. Sam LaPorta has already had issues with being productive for fantasy purposes, right? Now he's facing a team that has had 4 weeks in which they have allowed less than 5 points at tight ends. I don't see it. I'm not buying in. I need a reason to buy into Sam LaPorta, and it's not as easy as saying, "Well, Jameson Williams might be suspended." Not for nothing. LaPorta has only had what? Has he had a game of 10 points yet? Maybe one. He's been underperforming. He's not meeting your draft costs. At some point, we have to get to the conclusion that, all right, the guys that we drafted to be in our top 10 or to be at the forefront of our rosters, they're not hacking it. So at some point, we do have to pivot. And that doesn't necessarily mean dropping a said Sam Laporta. Maybe you wait till hopefully things work out. But maybe you pick up, like mentioned, a Cade Otton if he's out there. He was out there on some waiver wires. Uh, maybe you pick up a David Njoku if he's out there. Maybe you play one of those guys. Kittle is going to be. I know he was my other start option. He's rostered. He's rostered. That ship is sailed. But the other two, Cade Otton, David Njoku, you could potentially pick them up and play them over Sam LaPorta this week, and I unequivocally would. So those are our 3 starts. Those are our 3 sits for the tight end position in week 8. Again, just to go through it again, if you enjoy this content, feel free to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon to be notified when we go live. We got a lot of great content, but my 3 starts for this week, Cade Otton, David Njoku, George Kittle. My 3 sits, Mike Gesicki, Pat Freiermuth, and unfortunately, Mr. Samuel LaPorta. So that's going to do it for the FF Face Off today. I will tell you guys, until next time, stay thirsty, be kind to one another, and yeah, start George Kittle, but we'll most definitely catch you guys on the flip side.